Silio, for that generous introduction. Thank you, but thanks to Blue Earth Defense for organizing this very interesting webinar. Thank you to MJ for that excellent context setting. My task is to, yeah, you can record this presentation, this, and I can share the PowerPoint later. I My task is to present the offshore mining campaign in the Philippines. This is the offshore mining is one part of the global deep sea mining situation. We don't have deep sea mining policies or concrete applications here in the Philippines at this point, but we anticipate that deep sea mining will eventually arrive in our shores in the very near future. What we do have as a challenge right now are offshore mining applications and projects in the Philippines. And again, thank you for Blue Earth Defense for organizing this webinar, and BED and its affiliates and members here in the Philippines have been instrumental in setting up this specific campaign on offshore mining together with the Sustainable Oceans Alliance and Tambuyog and Oceana and other organizations involved in coastal marine resources in the Philippines. Okay. Um, with the context, the Philippines has the fifth largest coastline in the world. We are an archipelago. 80% of Filipinos live in coastal areas, especially in island groups. So we have big islands, but predominantly we have smaller islands that do have fragile island ecosystems. But at the same time, and actually there are three, we have fragile island ecosystems which have large coastlines, but they're also hosting human populations which rely both on the island ecosystem and in the coastal marine areas. And yet these coastal and marine resources are also part of the bigger and richer marine biodiversity in the Philippines, which is considered on the last point. We are hosting the center of marine biodiversity. And with this geographical location, fish is a major source of protein for Filipinos. Although I think data also shows a large part of our fish is now being provided by China, who encroach on our waters. Now, given that that's how wide and how rich the coastal and marine area of the Philippines is, the mineral resources within these coastal areas have been identified by the DNR, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. That department has a twin mandate to conserve and protect our environment, but also the the utilization, the exploration, development, and utilization of our natural resources, which would include minerals and also coastal and marine resources. But let's focus on offshore mining. But by the way, to distinguish, this is not yet deep sea mining because most of this are not on the 200-meter depth, and most of these are still within the boundaries or the within Philippine territories. In fact, probably less than 1 or 2 kilometers within the coastal area. And so this is not yet deep sea mining. But these mineral resources have been mapped out, not extensively yet, but traces and the potentials for presence and potential development and or extraction of these minerals have been identified by our government. You can see they are evenly distributed within the whole Philippine Islands. But let me just say that most of these locations are also the marine biodiversity areas of the Philippines. What we have seen is that some areas are actually in direct conflict or in close proximity to marine protected areas. Now, whether if the area is declared as marine protected or not, these areas remain very important sources of coastal and marine resources for income, livelihoods, food of the Filipino people. And that alone introduces early conflict. Do we prioritize the marine biodiversity and health and security of Filipinos, or do we prioritize extracting the minerals which are located on the same coastal areas? While we do not have yet policies on deep sea mining, the government does have regulatory guidelines on offshore mining. So most of these are 10 years already, and ironically, these offshore mining guidelines were passed, um we'd call them midnight policies. They were passed when the governments were transitioning after the Aquino administration in 2016 and the first few months of the Duterte administration also in 2016. And if some of our colleagues will recall, the first few months of the Duterte administration, the Secretary for the Environment was Ms. Gina Lopez. I put that as an important fact because Gina Lopez did want to protect the coastal and marine resources, and so she signed this regulatory policy about offshore mining with clear protection and precautionary principles as her guiding policy rule here. But suffice to say, we do have offshore mining policies in place. Are they the best regulatory policy? We're not convinced, but the regulatory policies are in place. So let me take about 3 or 4 of these important provisions. There is a definition of what offshore mining is, and this complies with the general mining principles and regulations on terrestrial land. What DNR did was get these principles, policy principles, and apply it to offshore and coastal marine. So offshore mining refers to basically the mining activities of exploration, feasibility study, development, and utilization. Now, a very important provisions is there's a definition of where offshore mining can be located. So offshore mining is beyond 500 meters from the mean low tide level. And if you're an individual, so take note, an individual person can actually apply for offshore mining. But if you're a partnership, corporation, or cooperative, you can have a bigger block, and one block is 81 hectares. So actually, if you're an individual, you can apply for about the 81 times one, that's 8,100 hectares for offshore mining. And if you're a corporation, you can apply for 81,000 hectares for offshore mining. But take note, this is already in direct conflict with our Fisheries Act, which is supposed to promote and protect the welfare of small fisher folk. Because in the Fisheries Act, the 15-kilometer municipal waters have priority use and preferential treatment for small fisher folk. But this offshore mining guideline is already in direct conflict with the Fisheries Act. Now, that's for exploration permit. You have a permit to explore that coastal and offshore area. Once a contract is agreed with the government, there are two types of contract, very much like what a terrestrial mining contract. You have a mineral processing agreement or a mineral agreement here, and then you have an FTAA, financial technical assistance. The difference between the two is just the size of the area and the amount of investments. So the MPSAs, the mineral agreements, have a smaller geographic area and a smaller minimum and maximum amount of investments. FTAAs, on the other hand, have a bigger area that can be contained in a mining agreement or a contract, and they have a bigger minimum investment required. But generally, this was taken from the Philippine Mining Act as well. So where are we right now? As of December 2025, these are the these are the applications of application and approved offshore mining tenements. The MPSA, the Mineral Processing Sharing Agreements, there are 9 approved and there are still 2 pending applications. For the bigger FTAAs, there are still 15 pending applications, but 2 are already approved. One of them is here in the Pangasinan area and the other is here in the Cagayan area. Exploration permits, there's still 99 pending exploration permits, but as of December 13 have already been approved. What this means is that there are already 24 offshore mining tenements, combination of exploration and perfected contracts that can actually start extracting in our offshore areas. Now, because if for an exploration permit, you can actually start your exploration activities, which generally involves disturbing all the landscape in the offshore area. GSQP are gravel and sand quarrying permits. Most gravel and sand quarrying permits are inland or in river systems, but there are gravel and sand quarrying permits in coastal areas. From what we know, all of these gravel and sand quarrying permits are pending or in suspension mode because of the existing moratorium on sand mining in the Philippines. However, we have no concrete data that the suspension orders are being implemented. We're pretty sure a lot of illegal activities are being done not right this moment. Most illegal activities happen at night of these offshore mining operations. So 11 large-scale offshore mining projects. Where did we get the number 11? That's this. The 9 MPSA and the 2 FTAA. So they are considered large-scale offshore mining projects. 2 of them are in development and construction phase. 9 are in the exploration phase in Pangasinan, Leyte, and Cagayan. As early as 2012 and as late as during the pandemic years, maybe as late as 2023, illegal foreshore and river ore or black sand mining from Chinese firms have been documented. In fact, as late as last year, we have monitored illegal black sand mining and offshore mining in Zambales and in Leyte. Most of them are involved in Chinese companies, Chinese workers, Chinese crew, and Chinese cargo ships. We are closely monitoring one in Cagayan area. No, this is in Visayas. Our partners in Visayas recently held a regional meeting for groups that have decided to set up a local regional campaign to challenge offshore mining in Negros Oriental and Negros Occidental along Negros Island. And we were lucky that some volunteers from the Ulirat Collective from UP came up with an updated map to show where are these mining applications in Negros Island. So this is an application for a financial and technical agreement. The size is 10,000 hectares, location along several coastal towns in Negros Island, and they will be targeting palladium, platinum, silver. Now, 10 years ago, the application was filed. Up to now, it's still on an application stage, still an exploration stage. Technically, the exploration should have been finished. They have not used the exploration permit, and so we are moving that the DNR should immediately revoke or cancel this exploration permit. We're lucky that the local communities and organizations, including the church and academe, are very active in resisting this offshore mining application. This is just a graphical example. This is almost the same process that JM explained on how deep sea mining is being proposed, or the initial testing of how deep sea mining happened in I think in the Pacific Ocean. But this is nearer shore and it's a bit shallower. We're talking about 50 to 100 meters deep only. And so a dredge ship will be getting the stockpile of sand, and then on a different ship, this sand with iron will be processed with a giant magnet, and then the sand and the iron will be separated from each other. The iron ore will then be taken to another storage cargo ship, and then they will be immediately exported. So there are a lot of problems already with this image. You can see the disturbance that will happen here. Then there's very few opportunities to actually monitor and check the amount and volume of sand that will be carried over. Then you have pollution of all these ships into this biodiversity area in this ecosystem. And then when the ore, the iron ore is taken out, you are compromising already the integrity of the coastal area. And then there is very little way to actually monitor the volume and value of these minerals. And then, of course, at the end of the day, the Philippines and the local communities are not benefiting from all of the extraction of these minerals. But at some point, we will be the one to absorb all the negative impacts of all these extractive activities. In a nutshell, seabed mining and offshore mining is almost the same as deep sea mining, but closer to shore, shallower depth, but almost the same negative impacts. So in monitoring some of the existing offshore and seabed mining, we have some studies that summarize different studies all over the world, and we have seen some of this happen in offshore mining, seabed mining areas in the Philippines. So there's habitat destruction of seagrass, coral, mangroves, and the benthic ecosystems. Maybe JM can expound a little bit later on about the benthic systems. Coastal erosion and altered currents, basically because we've taken out the iron already. And that's one of the functions of iron in our in the coastal area. It keeps the integrity of our coastal areas. But once you take out the iron, even if you put back the sand, then erosion is accelerated. Good thing if you bring back the sand. What we are witnessing is that seabed mining is happening from Cagayan to Pangasinan to Bataan. They separate the sand and the iron ore goes out, and then the sand goes to the reclamation projects in Bulacan and in Manila Bay. So, the cumulative impact of all these environmentally destructive activities is gonna pile up, and we're gonna be facing all the risk and threats in a couple of years. We will increase the risk of flooding and storm surge, especially in low-lying areas, and the social impacts, displacement of fishers. We have loss of traditional fishing grounds. We know that a lot of mining projects in terrestrial lands require port and piers. And when this construction of ports, seaports, and piers happen, fishing grounds are lost and fisher folks lose access to their traditional fishing grounds. Just imagine the same impact if we allow the expansion of all this seabed and offshore mining. And then there's it's not only a perception, but we have documented actual local government units and national government agencies who fail to implement participatory and consultative requirements for all of these mining projects. The limited transparency is because the DNR has classified all documents related to mining projects as trade secrets or not covered by the Freedom of Information policy of the government. What are the updates in the past couple of months? We have contacts in government, and they have disclosed the following updates from us. As early as 2008, offshore mining study in offshore studies in Benham Rice has been carried out, and there is already a 5-year offshore mineral resource assessment that is ongoing. So between well, this has been a process. We want to ask DNR what is the status of this one. We're not sure if DNR is leading this or is it DA for BIFAR. But of course, the idea is they want a resource assessment so that the minerals in the Benham Rice can be already included in the index of minerals that can be opened up for future applications and explorations. So this is the Benham Rice. This will be covered. This is covered by the resource mineral assessment. This other picture shows the location of the 11 offshore mining contracts that are. So remember, there are 9 of exploration permits and 2 mineral processing agreements already. So these are the areas where the actual live offshore mining contracts are located. And you've noticed that most of these are adjacent to known mineral districts. Interested, there are already extensive. Palawan is covered by terrestrial mining. This is Bicol region. Then this is Caraga region. This I think this should be Bataan and Bulacan area. But you have reclamation projects already happening there. And they are targeting offshore mining with depths of 40 to 100 meters. And then you see the conflicts here. This will be closed for local fisher folk. They won't be able to access fishing grounds and will experience serious negative impacts on their fish catch, which will result in a lower volume of fish catch for Philippine food supply, which compromises our food security. There are 12 priority areas for this offshore mining resource assessment, from Visayas to Bicol to Eastern Samar, Palawan, and then going up north. If you will notice, there are very few in Mindanao because the priority in Mindanao is still terrestrial mining. These 2016 guidelines, which I covered earlier, will be revised by a different department administrative order. This draft DAO was planned to be issued last year. It wasn't issued last year, but we anticipate the DNR will fast track it this 2026. We saw a cover of this draft guidebook. We haven't seen the actual draft. We hope that some of our scientist friends who do have access to DNR can provide some inputs to DNR. We're a bit cautiously optimistic with the new leadership in DNR can be more open to discussing the next steps and the regulatory framework for this offshore mining guidelines. We're keeping our communication lines open. Hopefully it returns to some positive alignment. Now, different from an offshore mining guidelines, we heard that the DNR is on the final stages of drafting a deep sea mining policy. Why is this important for DNR? Because the Philippines is already a member of the ISA, the International Seabed Authority, but we cannot entertain nor can we apply for a deep sea mining permit because we do not have yet existing policies or laws or regulation about deep sea mining. So that's the only motivation the DNR has right now. The last order from last year, we assume it's from Malacanang, is that we want to have a bigger role in the ISA, and that can only happen if we have a deep sea mining policy in place. We have not seen any draft. We are going to demand access and participation and to provide inputs to these draft policies on deep sea mining. And so that is partly the reason why we're appreciative of BED and SOA and Oceana and Tambuyog and all other organizations here are discussing offshore mining. What has been our response as Alianza Tigil Mina? In January last year, we convened a gathering of communities and organizations, and this gathering decided to launch a national campaign on offshore mining and deep sea mining. A working group has been convened, a draft agenda, and a work plan, and some main messages have been adopted by this working group. And ATM is gladly supporting this working group. We have sent several letters to DNR demanding that the drafting of all these guidelines on offshore mining and deep sea mining should include inputs from civil society, from affected communities, and other documentation, including joint submissions between academe and community-based organizations. We have to participate. We have to put the voices and positions of affected communities in this whole process of drafting the policy guidelines. As ATM, we would like to be part of a campaign on the moratorium on seabed mining, which includes both offshore mining and deep sea mining. We are actively applying for membership to the Deep Sea Campaign Coalition. Um, and we have existing support and local campaigns to support, organize, raise awareness for affected communities about the issues of offshore mining. We believe that a crucial aspect of our work is to assert and demand our access to information. And so once we challenge the existing policies on the freedom of information within DNR, we would like to pursue participation so that we can amplify the call for environmental conservation. And of course, protect and promote and fulfill the rights of affected communities. So we have added in the ATM main message that aside from the repeal of the Mining Act and the enactment of the Alternative Minerals Management Bill or the Philippine Minerals Resources Act, there should be a moratorium on offshore mining and seabed quarrying because of all the issues and all the uncertainties. As a JM has pointed out, we have a lot of things that we do not know about the ecosystems offshore and the coastal marine. And if we allow the impacts of offshore mining and seabed quarrying to rampage, then we might be looking at double or triple the negative impacts. We know that deep sea mining and offshore mining is a global issue. We would like ATM and hopefully all of us here in this webinar can contribute to international solidarity. We would like to offer researches and then representation from the communities. We would like to support studies and social media and communication work, especially the voices and faces of affected communities towards an international campaign to stop deep sea mining. Maraming salamat po and hopefully we can continue with this productive engagement. Magandang umaga, good morning, thank you.
Thank you very much, JB.